What's going on, everybody? It's Omar Almodovar with Elite Recruits here. In today's video, we have a very special family to join us to talk about the recruiting process, overcoming adversity, and what experiences they can share to the next generation as they go through the recruiting process themselves. So, if you want to take it away, E, tell them your name, where you're from, what position you play, what school you were at when we first connected, and where you play now.
Absolutely. So I am Ethan Acevedo, everyone. Nice to meet you guys. I'm from Monroe, New York. I attend VCU now, but I initially attended Coppin State and then transferred to Indian Hills in Iowa. And I'm an outfielder.
Yes, lefty hitting outfielder.
That's
So,
the outfielder.
let's take it back a little bit. Before you and I first connected, what was going on with your recruiting process at that time? And what were you needing help with the most?
So when we connected, I was at Indian Hills Community College, and I was in the fall, and we were looking for a couple of options, a couple of just to seek some different kind of interests and stuff, and just see where we can take it. And I was looking for a new home.
100%. Now, you're a guy that you didn't start at a junior college, right? You started at a Division I school. Nowadays, more than ever, it's become really difficult for high school guys to make that jump to a D1. Can you talk a little bit about how important it is as a guy coming out of high school to just focus on finding the best fit for you rather than just trying to chase a big logo or a certain division?
Absolutely. I think it's the most important thing. Going somewhere where you feel comfortable out of high school is truly the biggest thing. Finding coaches that are for you, finding people you feel comfortable playing for. That's more important than anything, whether it's Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA, Juco ball. You want to feel comfortable while you're playing this game because if the moment you feel uncomfortable with it, it becomes very hard, it becomes mentally challenging. Like that's the biggest thing. I think coming out of high school, you got to prioritize where you're at. You got to take into account how far it is from your family. There's different things that people don't think about until you get to school that you ultimately deal with when you're there. So trying to avoid that before and finding the right place is huge.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Will, from your experience, obviously seeing him transfer a few times now and obviously get to the best fit for him at this current moment,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to families going through the process now about, the same topic of finding the right fit?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that I think every parent that's has a child that's being recruited or would like to get a child into collegiate sports, it's a difficult and stressful process. Especially now more than ever. What I can say is like Ethan touched on a little bit is finding the right fit. Um, listen, I don't think you should go into a place looking as a stepping stone, more somewhere where you should look at as a home and you can see yourself there coming back 20 years down the line. I think to fit it's great. That's the most important thing to me, I believe.
100%, 100%, right? Like there's a place that it could end up turning into a stepping stone because you develop and you,
Yes.
you prove yourself, but that's not how you should look at it, right? If you
No,
look,
absolutely not. And you know what? And Ethan said he played Juco ball. He was at Indian Hills. I think Juco ball is completely overlooked. I can honestly say that some of the most competitive baseball I saw, and Ethan maybe could chime in a little bit, was at the Juco ball. He was playing Juco ball, seeing guys throwing 97, 99 miles an hour. You know what I mean? Going from that into summer ball, it was like, man, oh, I'm seeing 99, I'm seeing 90, 91. It's different. Guys are hungry at that JUCO level.
absolutely. A lot of guys that are overlooked that want to
Yeah.
get a shot at the next level. It's a really competitive environment to get the best out of you. And
Yeah.
clearly it did for you because now you're at a place where you're playing high level Division I baseball, but also having success while you're there. So that credits a lot to, not just the adversity that you overcame, which we'll talk about, but the competitive environment that you put yourself in. So taking it back, once we got started, we talked about your goals. We put a game plan together to help you achieve that. Talk a little bit about how important it was for you to like actually have a game plan and have guidance rather than just trying to figure out on your own.
Like we just touched upon, it's a crazy world, not only baseball, but every, sport, football, baseball, basketball, And if you're not familiar with the way to navigate it, you can end up like on quicksand, you know what I mean? Just sinking. Um, and I think that's why, recruiting services such as the one that you provide for these kids, it's pretty big and crucial to the recruiting part. Because let's say you don't know how to, connect, with schools or coaches, or even if you do, you don't know how to go about it and how to properly, approach that issue. And that plays a big role, like, just even something like I remember us three talking about like a heading or something like, these coaches get hundreds and hundreds of emails from high school kids, JUCO kids, other transfer kids. So what can you put in a quick glance to get their attention? And that's big, and that's pretty big. Like for Ethan's case, I remember like getting emailing you like, oh my God, nobody's responding. But you're like, all right, let's put, left hand hitting 6'5" runner. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
that jumps out. Because guess what? Not you're highlighting your strength. Ethan can run, and
Exactly.
things like that.
When you first get into it and stuff like that, you're talking with coaches, you're going back and forth. There's like certain questions that you may, find trouble answering, or you don't know want to say the wrong things, and I think that plays a big part into why services like this is huge. So
For sure. And now, obviously, at your school in the past, obviously, like every coach approaches recruiting differently, but there's a situation where exposure is super important today, and also finding the balance of you putting yourself out there on social media so that coaches can find you, and you not having to worry about, hey, what coaches are going to come see us play in person, right? So the exposure side of it is really important. With that said, there's a lot of recruiting services out there today. Quite frankly, not all of them are in it for the players and for the right reason. So for you, a lot of players might be watching this. How would you describe, your time inside the program, the support, the communication, and your overall experience in our relationship?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, for all those people out there, I mean, me and Omar talked all the time. There was a lot of checking up. There was a lot of
A lot of follow through.
yeah, a lot of follow through, whether it was good, bad, in the middle, and just it wasn't just always about baseball. It was just, it
Yeah,
was more of a relationship, and I can confidently say that me and Omar will always talk. We'll always have a relationship, and even outside the recruitment part, whether it was for a holiday, for Thanksgiving, for Christmas or anything,
Birthdays.
and yeah, and birthdays, yeah,
Hmm.
like you know, it was Omar was just there, and I think that's the biggest thing, and there's a relationship that we can carry on forever that was brought about because of recruitment, but it's just a family thing now. So
And also that even behind the scenes, just like with O and I talking, or not even Ethan around, you know what I mean? Like, oh, this is what's going on with Ethan. What do you think? Vice versa, it's a two-way street. Yeah, and that's what people have to understand. It's a two-way street. Like you get what you put into it. So obviously, Ethan's a proactive kid that, grabs the bull by the horns, partnered up with somebody like Omar, it makes for a good recipe.
absolutely, absolutely. And that's the thing, right? Where a lot of, and I want to make a point to that, where a lot of guys, they think that, just because you're working with somebody, that magic is going to happen, right? Where it's not the case. Like I told you guys very clearly from the beginning that this is a collaborative effort, right? I'm going to guide you and help you, but Ethan, you got to meet me halfway with the effort. And I give you kudos because you were never a guy that I had to babysit and see if you're on top of your stuff, because you wanted it that bad for yourself, right? So if you did, that's where I can come in and help and guide you. But at the end of the day, I had already finished my career and I already played at Division 1 level. I can help you get back there, but it's your career. So you got to show up for yourself at the end of the day. And that's something that you did consistently. Now, talk a little bit about when we first got connected. Were you guys, skeptical about working with somebody online you had never met before, or paying for recruiting help? And ultimately, what changed your minds?
So yeah, definitely. I think you just don't lay in bed, with the first, offer or person, right? That comes through you. And I think not only in the recruiting aspect of it, but in everything in life, you have to, do your homework, do your research, dot your I's, cross your T's. You want to make sure that, that you're just not going blind into anything, And with this particular situation, we did do our homework. We spoke to prior clients, if you want to call them clients, but people that you work with, and like nothing but good things were said. So it kind of made sense. So that's why we decided, yeah, let's move forward to see how it works. You know.
For sure. E, what about on your side of it?
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback off that, like when you look into somebody and they have a history of doing well, it plays into everything. For example, for schools, the reason I went to Indian Hills is because they have a great history, and you just bring that to everything in life. When somebody's known for doing something, being consistent with it, and they show you that same approach and want to help you and contribute to you, it's a very unselfish thing. And when you see that from other people who want to help, it's contagious. So you want to be around it, and anytime you can use that kind of help, I think it's a two-way street, but it's always appreciated.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about this, right? Because you obviously went into JUCO, right, with the goal of getting back to Division 1 level. And we always have, a certain game plan that we have or a certain vision of how things are going to work out. Well, that wasn't necessarily the case for you right away, right? Obviously, your spring season wasn't what you know that you were capable of doing as a player. Obviously, adversity and different things happen. Talk a little bit about, the moments that you had throughout the season that allowed you to get to where you are today, right? In terms of overcoming adversity and sticking through the process, because everything that you have right now was earned, it wasn't given to you. So, what advice would you share for guys out there that are going through the process and struggling a little bit?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing is staying positive when everything gets hard. It's easy to quit. It's easy to say, oh, it's easy to feel bad for yourself. And there's going to be moments where you're going to feel bad for yourself. There's going to be moments where you're doubting things. And honestly, it's how do you create that fire again in your belly? Like how do you go about your work every day, even when things aren't going your way? How are you gonna get up in the morning and be positive and be like, you know what? Yesterday was a bad day. Maybe I gotta go ahead and have a good day. And it might not even come. It might take its time. You won't see the results until maybe 3 months later. In my case, I didn't see the results of the summer, and it's a tough thing when you're in a recruiting process and you're not having the success that you may want, and people are looking at it, people are watching, and I think the biggest thing is just keep going, keep getting after it, even when things get hard. So
100%. Now, obviously, and this will be helpful for guys that are in the JUCO season, right? You didn't commit at the end of your spring season, and that's usually the timeline where things get really tough for guys because the transfer portal is opening up. It adds thousands of other players that you're now competing with, but you decided to bet on yourself and stick with the process. How much did things change for you going into the summer when you started putting up the numbers that you know you're capable of and betting on yourself?
I was just gonna say exactly what you just said, just literally just betting myself. I mean, everyone told me, like, I had, a couple opportunities when I finished Indian Hills and stuff like that. And, I was ultimately trying to be at the best place possible and stuff like that. And, I really wanted to just continue and continue. And I just didn't let anybody dictate, my situation. And I stayed with it. And when you have that kind of determination and you just believe in yourself, I mean, that's the only thing that matters. I truly believe that I knew the kind of player I was heading into the summer, and I knew I had the best opportunity to go in the summer and just allow myself to shine and allow myself to be the player I was. Obviously, giving obviously the Percival Cannon guys, the Brett, the Ridges of the world and stuff like that. Those guys over there, they gave me a great opportunity, and when you have that, you gotta do your best to shine and just be yourself. So.
100% now. And to point on that, right? Like, obviously, you went in there, you absolutely killed the league. You're putting up crazy numbers. You did have a lot of success there, but it wasn't just that the opportunities were coming your way left and right. You were still sticking with the process of continuing to put yourself out there and continue to reach out to the coaches. What's the biggest piece of advice that you would leave to guys in the recruiting process right now that, hey, maybe they have the good numbers, but they're not seeing results because they're waiting for coaches to come to them?
That's a great question. You feel like you're not being seen. I know in the summer I felt like I wasn't being seen all the time. And whether it was because of, the spring or whether it was because, I wasn't putting myself out there, you know, um, It's tough. It's tough. Like you have to do it on your own. You have to. I was emailing coaches every single day, multiple times. I emailed the same coaches 5 times. I would go on Twitter. I would send DMs all the time, and it helps when my dad is in there helping me and just kind of guiding me and just telling me kind of what to do really. And when coaches have questions and stuff and how you're gonna answer those questions, you ultimately got to put the best image of yourself. You know how they say, your best brand. So how do you promote that brand basically? And you have to promote the brand. Nobody else is gonna do it for you. You have to do it.
And to jump on that real quick, what I do want to say is that even when you think someone isn't watching, there's someone always watching. Like yeah, and people have to understand this that this recruiting thing from the opposite end of the spectrum. When I'm speaking about the coaches, like this is their livelihood. These coaches have to find the right fit as well. They can't bring in a locker room problem, so they have to do their homework. They want to make sure they want to go see this kid how he interacts with his teammates, how he runs on and off the field, how he plays catch, how he warms up, how he gets after it. And because listen, there are a lot of talented kids. Like in Ethan's kids, he's a lefty center fielder that's fast. There's a hundreds and hundreds of fast left-handed hitting center fielders, right? What separates you from them? Academics, you know, leadership qualities, being a great teammate. Guess what? Being the kid that when the coach tells you, hey, I need you to drop a bunt to sacrifice your at bat, that you're willing to do that. You have to be able to buy into things like that, because like in Ethan's case, I think they went to see him like 5, 6 times before they're like, all right, this is the guy we want to invest in. And people do have to understand that. And and also at any level, you know what I mean? Like being open to each and every level. Ethan was, because there's good baseball everywhere, man. Good
Hmm.
baseball everywhere.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
just
No,
also, being the same person all the time. Just being
I-
the same person all the time. I didn't mention that before, but be the same person, be consistent.
Exactly. And I think, well, that's a really good point because while coaches are not always communicating with you, they are always watching, right?
Yeah.
Just like you said, I remember when it got later into the summer, you told me, hey, VCU has a lot of interest, but we haven't heard back. They said they would reach out at this point and this time, but they
Mhm.
haven't yet. Should we be worried? But you went out there and you continued doing what you were supposed to do, and then you ended up with the offer that you needed. So just sticking with being the same person who you are day in and day out, regardless of the results, is what ultimately gets you the results. Not when you expect them or when you want them, but when it's the right timing. So I think that's perfect. Now, if somebody is watching this and they're going through the recruiting process and they're on the fence about joining me and working with me, what would you guys say to somebody on the outside?
Do it.
Do it.
Do it. Absolutely. I think, there's nothing to be scared about with this. Omar's a great person. Forget, the work and all the recruitment stuff. Like he's a good person. He's a person you wanna talk to. He's gonna look out for you. He's gonna communicate with you. He's gonna talk to you when you're doing good. He's gonna talk to you when you're doing bad.
Yeah.
So
It's an investment. If you put money into, for Down Jones, you're taking a risk, an investment. Well,
Mhm.
this you got to invest in your child to see, to hope that everything works out. But in every investment, do your homework. Listen, I do think these type of videos help. But guess what? Do your homework. Reach out to, the kids, that are following you on Twitter, the kids that are within the program outside of these testimonials, and to see what they think. Because listen, you know, um, everybody's gonna have difference of opinion, but if the one constant thing is that, oh, you know what, this guy, genuinely helps and he's doing it for the right reasons, then you know what? That's something you might want to consider, just like that. Like if you want to commit to a program, guess what? Reach out to kids that graduated from that school before, see what they say, just,
Exactly.
go out there and do your homework and your research. But I would recommend to go ahead and do it.
Exactly, 100%. You have to do your homework, right? Just like, this is the biggest decision of your career up to this point, Ethan, and that's something that I take really serious. If you're gonna partner, like you said, well, if you're gonna lay in bed with somebody, you have to know exactly what you're getting into business with. So I'm an open book, do the research, reach out to anybody, because at the end of the day, if you're willing to do the research, then you're willing to do the things that I ask of you inside the program. So it goes hand in hand. Ethan, now that you're getting ready for your spring season, if guys out there want to follow along with your journey or maybe reach out to you for advice when things aren't necessarily going their way, where can guys find you on social media?
Yeah, if there's any ever questions, if there's anything you wants to talk about, please do. You can reach me on Instagram at Ethan Acevedo with two O's at the end. Um, my Twitter is EthanAce1128. If you need to contact me for a number or anything, please don't mind to reach out to Omar and he can send it they can send it my way and stuff like that. And if there's ever questions or anything you want to speak about, please do. I'm always here to
Absolutely.
help.
I know a lot of guys are going to be watching this and following your journey. Obviously, VCU is a great spot to be in. There's a lot of money coming into that program, a lot of facilities being built. I'm super excited to follow along with your journey, dude.
Thank you. Thank you, Omar. I appreciate you taking your time out and talking to us. So.